All right, let's talk about something that pretty much every iOS developer working in a team has run into. I'm talking about that dreaded git merge conflict. You know the one, with the storyboards. It is a super common, super frustrating problem. But today, we're going to break it all down. Not just why it happens, but how you can actually master it.
You know the feeling, right? You've spent hours, maybe even days, getting a user interface just perfect. You push your code, ready to merge, and then, boom, you see it. The merge can't complete. That little sinking feeling you get in your stomach, that's the exact moment we're talking about. The moment a creative UI task suddenly becomes this messy technical headache.
And this is what that feeling looks like. This jumbled mess of text is basically the universal symbol for a developer's migraine. It's Git just throwing its hands up in the air and saying, look, I have no idea how to put these two changes together. You deal with it. And with storyboards, this happens a lot.
So let's start by properly diagnosing this headache, because you can't treat the problem until you really understand it. We're going to look at the symptoms first, and then we'll dig deep to find the root cause, and of course, the cure.
So what is actually going on under the hood? I mean, why are storyboards so famous for causing these painful conflicts? Well, the answer isn't in what you see in Xcode, the nice graphical editor. It's in the raw text that Git has to try and make sense of.
And here it is. This is the heart of the problem. Storyboards aren't really code in the way that we think of Swift code. They're actually these incredibly complex machine-generated XML files. Now, Git is an absolute genius when it comes to merging text that humans write. But when it sees this chaotic XML and two different people have made changes, it just gets completely and utterly lost.
This slide really just says it all, doesn't it? On the left, what you see in Xcode might be a super simple change, like I moved a button 10 pixels. But on the right, what Git sees is a total mess. It's a waterfall of changes to XML tags, weird coordinates, and random object IDs. One tiny visual tweak creates a huge, ugly difference in the file.
So let's break it down even further. First, looking at differences in XML is just not friendly for human eyes. It's a nightmare to read. Second, if you and another developer both add, say, a label to the same view, you're both messing with the same parent XML tags. That's a guaranteed conflict. And the craziest part, sometimes just dragging one thing around causes Xcode to rewrite totally unrelated parts of the file, which just adds even more noise and confusion for Git. Okay, enough about the problem. Let's talk about the solution. Because this isn't about getting better at fixing conflicts, it's about not having them in the first place. It's time to get proactive. Let's build a prevention plan. So it really boils down to 4 key strategies that successful teams are using right now. Think of these as the new rules of the road for your project. Split your storyboards, use XIBs, define who owns what, and talk to each other. Let's go through each one. First things first. Stop using one massive storyboard for your whole app. That is just asking for trouble. Instead, break your UI down into smaller, logical pieces based on features. A login storyboard, a profile storyboard, a settings storyboard. That way, the person working on login will never, ever clash with the person working on the user profile. Simple. Number 2. For any piece of UI that you use more than once, like a special button or a custom table view cell or a header, pull it out into its own separate XIB file. This instantly makes your project way more modular, and it seriously cuts down on the chances that 2 people will be editing the same file just to tweak a tiny shared component. Now this one is so simple, it's brilliant. For any given task or sprint, you assign one and only one developer to each storyboard file. That's it. This bit of team discipline completely gets rid of 2 people editing the same file at the same time. It's a totally low-tech solution to a very high-tech problem, and believe me, it works. And finally, you gotta talk to each other. Seriously, before you go and rearrange an entire screen, just give the team a heads up. When you're reviewing someone's code, look closely at the storyboard changes. Communication is really the glue that holds all these other technical strategies together. But let's be real. Even with the best plan in the world, a conflict is gonna slip through now and then. So what do? First, don't panic. Now we shift from preventing the problem to treating it. This is your emergency guide for fixing those conflicts the right way. Okay, listen up, because this is the #1 rule. Never, ever blindly click accept theirs or accept mine. That's a recipe for disaster. Instead, you follow this rescue plan. Step 1, open the storyboard file as source code so you can see the raw XML. Step 2, you go through the conflict markers yourself and manually decide line by line what to keep. Step 3, and this is super important, you reopen it in Xcode's graphic editor and check that all your outlets and actions are still connected. And finally, you test every single screen and button involved in that change. No skip.
And hey, you're not flying blind here. There are tools that can help. Visual Git clients like Gitkraken or Tower, or even the source control that's built right into Xcode can show you a side-by-side view of the changes. This turns that confusing mess of text into a really clear comparison and helps you make a much smarter decision when you're doing that manual merge.
So we've diagnosed the headache, we've laid out a solid prevention plan, and we've even got an emergency protocol. Let's wrap this all up with a final prescription for long-term success when you're using storyboards as part of a team.
This right here, this is the whole thing. It's the key takeaway. It's not that storyboards are bad for teams. Not at all. It's that they force you to work in a different, more structured way. You can absolutely be successful with them, but it means you have to embrace structure. You have to be disciplined in your process, and you have to make communication your top priority.
And that's the question I want to leave you with. Beating this problem isn't about finding some magic tool or a secret Git command. It's about changing your team's habits. It's about process. So, is your team ready to adopt the discipline it takes to finally master collaborative storyboard development?